As Amazon continues to hide the reviews for Rings of Power, some of the actors who are involved with the show are having complete meltdowns over the backlash from fans. It's almost like when you make a show that isn't respecting the lore from the author of the book, you know, the book that's been translated in over 60 different languages, there's going to be some sort of backlash. I know, that is absolutely crazy. Let's get into what Lenny Henry has to say here. Rings of Power star Lenny Henry implies critics of Amazon's race swapping are racist. Which, you know, it's funny because when you go and look at a lot of the reviews for the actual show, it's, you know, when you look at especially a lot of the 1-star, half-star reviews over on Rotten Tomatoes, which, by the way, is sitting currently at 36% from fans, from audiences for the show. There's not a whole lot of, that's not really what the primary complaint is that a lot of people have. I think producers have no idea about Tolkien's universe. This is just disrespectful to its work. It was just disgusting betrayal. So as you can see, there are a lot of fans who are simply not happy with the directions and the complete disrespect for the work of Tolkien. Simply not Tolkien. And if you take away Tolkien's writing from Middle-earth, you simply have a soulless product. Bad writing, complete disrespect of Tolkien, thinking they can turn it into their lore, and even the scenes are bad. For example, the walking to the dwarven door, 2 people alone, no supplies whatsoever. 1 person let in, and the other person walks back alone on a trip for days, no supplies whatsoever or support for dangerous animals. Nothing to do with the world of Tolkien. So you guys get the picture, right? But of course, this is what Hollywood continues to do. They will put forced diversity into their different crappy shows, so that they can, you know, disrespect the lore all they want. And then if fans criticize that, they can then point to their diversity hires and be like, oh, you don't like it because of our black actor, which usually is not what the actual problem is for a lot of these things. Like so many before him who have defaulted to the same tired excuse in order to defend any number of live-action Hollywood adaptations from criticisms against a given project's bastardization of its source material. Series star Lenny Henry has dismissed the critics of Rings of Power's race swapping of J.R.R. Tolkien's original creations as nothing more than racists who can't handle the idea that a black person could be a member of the court, or a hobbit, or an elf, which isn't at all what the actual problem is. Now, if you made an original fantasy show, like Amazon totally could have done, that had, you know, even if they made an entire original fantasy show that had like an all-black cast, I don't think there would be hardly anybody that would be complaining about that. Black Panther is a great example of that. A story that is a fantastical story that is set in a fantastical place with pretty much an all-black cast, and very, very few people had any problems with that because that was right for that story. You know what I mean? But that's the thing is, at the end of the day, the root problem that a lot of fans have is that there is no respect for the source material from Tolkien. But they don't want to pretend that it's the actual problem that is going on here. So this is what Lenny Henry had to say. I love fantasy. I've been reading comics since I was 9. Tolkien was from Birmingham, and the Shire is based on the Lickey Hills of Birmingham. It all very much feels like something to me. However, despite feeling this connection to The Lord of the Rings, Henry then noted that often, and this is what he says here is absolutely insane, and this is exactly what the problem is. Often when you're watching these things, you don't see yourself as a black person. But what's interesting about this being told from a 21st century perspective, things are being reconfigured, and I like that. That right there is the problem. They're telling Lord of the Rings from a 21st century perspective, which is not even that they're telling it from a 21st century perspective. They're telling it from a woke perspective. That's exactly what's happening here. Things are being reconfigured. Just compare this to what he's saying here to what Peter Jackson said when he made Lord of the Rings, where he said that he didn't want to put any of his own political ideologies, none of his own beliefs into the works of Lord of the Rings. He wanted to make a story that was reflecting the beliefs and the worldview of J.R.R. Tolkien. There is a stark difference that is going on here between Rings of Power and Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. PJ took a lot of creative liberties with his work as well. But once again, it goes back to those quotes and the difference between the approach of these projects from these different filmmakers. I agreed to be in the show because maybe some kid would be watching this one day and they'll see co-stars Ismael Cruz Cordova and Sophie Namvet, and they'll see me and go, yeah, I can wield the sword. Yeah, I can rock a bow and arrow, which literally no one is saying that they can't. So that's just incredibly silly. With all of that being said, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you all in another video very soon.